everyone. Welcome to the MudRoom, our weekly free uncommon sense parenting class. How's everyone today? It has been a very busy week around here. Last week, I had the privilege of speaking for Enfamil at one of their innovation sessions, which was a huge thrill. It was virtual, but it was still so much fun, and it was incredible to get to speak to their internal team. My kids are finally back in school after being out for over a week with Omicron, how do we pronounce it? COVID tore through our family. The only one who was spared was my husband, and that's only because he left with the military before my youngest contracted it, which was excellent timing on his part, horrible timing for me, but we all survived. He's back now. Things are good. During that time, I also recorded some podcast episodes with a bunch of different podcasts, so keep your eyes on Instagram as those episodes roll out. There's just been a lot going on. And I hope for your sake that things have not nearly been as chaotic as they have been here, because I'm still catching my breath. All right, so today we're talking play stages. I've touched on this a few times in various episodes when it comes to siblings, but I realized we don't have like a comprehensive guide to play stages and what the impact of them is on your child's behavior. And there's been a lot of discussion on play stages in Parentability and the Parenting Posse, and it came up in a couple of those podcast episodes too. So it's top of mind, and I think it's top of mind because the pandemic has made these stages just that much more visible. Before we get into it though, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Alana Robinson. I'm a parenting coach for parents of children 2 to 6 years old, and I help you understand why your children are misbehaving and how to fix it without yelling, shaming, or timeouts. I'm your host here on the MudRoom. I'm also the host of the Parenting Posse Facebook group, and I'm the creator of the Parentability program, where I help parents just like you raise well-behaved kids of your own. Since you're here, if you do me the honor of liking and subscribing, that would make my day. Also, if you're listening to this as a podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you'd take the time to rate us and leave a review. As always, comments are welcome, and I try to answer every single one. Or if you want to just talk it out, come and join us in the Parenting Posse and we can continue the discussion there. All right, so play stages. I think all parents get that children learn to share, but not many parents are aware about play stages, what they are, and how they develop. And I've found that an understanding of play stages is a huge stress reducer for parents, because we tend to expect children to display social behaviors that just aren't developmentally appropriate. Hence why you can't really scroll through a Facebook mommy group without at least one post about sharing gracing your feed. Parents seem to expect back and forth sharing and cooperative play as young as 18 months old. And if you're not aware of the arc of play development, you're going to feel panicked, frustrated, and like a failure when your kid isn't doing those things. And as we talked about last week, our expectations really shape how we interact with our kids, and therefore the lessons we teach them. Matching our lessons to our child's stage of development is how we ensure that our children learn as quickly as possible. So the first play stage starts right after birth. This is what we call unoccupied play. Yes, as soon as we're born, we start to play. This is when your baby they're staring at the ceiling, they're cooing, they're making faces, they're just kind of looking around, they're flailing their arms. They look like they're just watching what's going on around them and making these jerky movements. But these are the foundations of play. To play with a baby in this stage is all on you. You're making faces, you're talking in motherese, you're bouncing them, showing them high contrast things. This stage of play lasts until about 3 months old. Then around 3 months, you'll notice your child starts moving into what's called solitary play. They've got their own game going in their head, and nobody else is in on it. They may interact with you if you make faces or if you insert yourself into their game. They may show you what they're doing. Think of like a toddler holding something up to show it to you and then going back to using it. This stage lasts until approximately 2 years old. And you're going to notice as we go through these that there is overlap between the ages. Children aren't robots, they don't level up. They often have 1 foot in one stage and 1 foot in the next. Or they'll show signs of the next stage and then seem to regress a little bit, and then they'll move up again and go back again. It's not a linear process, although I know many parents really wish it was. Development just isn't that cut and dry though. So usually around 2 years old, we also see the development of something called onlooker play. This is exactly what it sounds like, where children will often just stand and watch other kids play. This is usually where I start to see trouble brewing, as parents interpret this as shyness and try to encourage their child to engage with other kids, and they push them to jump into the activity before the child's actually ready. This stage is something kids duck in and out of for the rest of their lives, and we've discussed the importance of observation in a previous episode, so I won't go too far into that again. But onlooker play is really imperative to children engaging competently in a new activity. And it is play. Watching someone else play stimulates the same growth and development as actually engaging in the play does, which is why it's so vital to children feeling comfortable engaging. It's like secondhand play. So the next stage after onlooker and solo play is parallel play. This starts sometime around the age of 2 as well, usually between like 2 and 3. This is when children will play alongside another child in the same space, but they aren't playing together. This is why 2-year-olds are so bad for grabbing toys. They're playing a game, and they see something that they want for their game, and they take it. They have zero awareness of the other person's use of that toy, because quite frankly, they don't care. Because the other thing 2-year-olds are is egocentric. They are self-centered, and that's not a moral failing. That's just where their development is. They are worried about themselves and only themselves. A hallmark of parallel play is when children are playing with a larger toy. Think of like a play kitchen. And they're both playing with it, but they're completely playing by themselves. If someone else picks up the pretend jug of milk, they lose their minds because I needed that. Like they're in their own world entirely, despite the fact that there are other people playing their own games around them as well. After parallel, we have associative play. This generally starts around age 3-ish, and it's when kids start to actually play with other people. Going back to our example of 2 kids playing in the kitchen, if those kids are in associative play, they'll share the resources somewhat. So Raj might be over here grilling steaks, and Gemma's over here feeding the baby. They're playing house together, but they're doing it separately. Gemma's got her plot line. She's over there with the baby. Raj has his with the steaks. And they might cross occasionally, but that's about it. Another example would be 2 kids sword fighting. If they're engaged in a sword fight and one kid knocks the other kid's sword out of their hand, the kid who got the sword knocked out of their hand will whine and complain that they were playing with that and to give it back. Hey, I was using that. Give it back to me. They're playing together, but they've each got their own game going on in their head. Or children playing superheroes. Like, you're Spider-Man, he's Batman, she's Black Widow, she's Wonder Woman. I'm sure I'm crossing DC and Marvel, and my children will give me hell for this at some point, but sorry. They're all playing their own games, though, as their own characters. They aren't all fighting the same bad guy together. After associative, we finally have cooperative play. And this starts to develop around age 4. This is the final stage. And this is where children are genuinely playing together and they have a common plot. So the kids in the kitchen are all getting ready for a birthday party. One person is the birthday kid and the rest are taking on supporting roles. They're passing resources back and forth. They're all in on the game and they're all contributing ideas to that one central game. The kids sword fighting, if one gets their sword knocked out of their hand, they're going right into hand-to-hand combat. They're going to complain and whine for their sword back because they see them losing their sword as a function of the game. So they're going to keep the game going because they have a common plot. The kids who are playing superheroes are all fighting the same bad guy and they're all working as a team to take him down. They're playing together. They're not just occasionally passing resources between their independent games. So I'm sure you can see how this results in conflict when we have two children who aren't on the same play stage. Most often we see this with siblings. The older child is in associative or cooperative play, and the younger one is in parallel or associative play, and they're struggling to negotiate the use of toys and resources because the other one isn't using them the way the other is expecting. Now, it is possible for older children to play down, where they adjust their expectations to match the play stage of the younger child. Oldest children in a family usually get quite good at this. Children in mixed age groupings at daycare get quite good at this, but it does take practice. Most of my oldest son's friends are only children, and when my younger son was still in associative play, they would really struggle to play with him when they'd come for play dates, and many, right out asked my oldest to tell his little brother to go away, or to play a game that excluded my youngest somehow. And I would often hear my oldest explaining that no, he's not going to do that, but here, this is how we involve him in the game without him ruining it. And it wasn't that these other kids were mean or rude, they just didn't spend a whole lot of time playing with younger children. They spent most of their time playing with their same age peers who were in the same play stage. They didn't have the opportunity to practice playing down the way my son did. When we're aware of these play stages and we recognize the challenges between navigating playing between them, it changes our relationship with the behavior we're seeing from our kids. Because in those instances with my son and his friends, if I wasn't aware of the differences in play stages, I'd probably think that those kids were just mean, rude little assholes. I wouldn't want my son to play with them anymore or come over again. If I wasn't aware of the differences between my son's play stages, I likely wouldn't have taught my older one explicitly how to play in a way that made sense to my younger one. I wouldn't have set boundaries that made it easier for them to play together, like our turn-taking protocol that I shared in the episode on sharing. I'd have just freaked out on my older son for not sharing and excluding his brother, probably shaming him. A long time ago, I think it was in season 2? It was a while ago. I did an episode on the cycle of success and how our beliefs impact our expectations influence our actions, and our actions determine our results, which reinforce our beliefs. This is a perfect example of that. The easiest bit of change in that cycle is your beliefs. What you know to be true. And that small change in belief, in knowledge, ultimately completely alters the outcome. So this week, when you're noticing kids struggling to play together, try to place them within one of those play stages and see how you could help them navigate those differences. Often that means separating them, and that's okay. Sometimes it means that you have to act as the mediator. Before Logan could say to his friend, it's okay, he just needs a job to do so we can play the game with him, I had to say that to him multiple times, hundreds of times. I had to show him how to include his brother while keeping his brother within the play stage that he was at. For instance, dressing his brother up as Robin and telling them that he needed to go gather intelligence on the Joker, whatever. Or pretending to drop his own sword so that Owen had a chance to pick his back up. If you're struggling with implementing this, please come and join us in the Parenting Posse. We'd love to chat it out with you. The link is in the description. And if you'd like to go deeper into how your child's development influences their behavior, come and take our free class and consider joining us in Parentability. Links for both of those are in the description. Have a fantastic week, everybody, and I'll see you next week for another Uncommon Sense parenting class.